Hello everyone and happy July. June was an amazing month for me. I went on a school trip with my oldest to Washington, DC, spent a few days there. My sister came out to visit for a week. I went to another sister's house for a weekend, and we've been busy with summer sports for my kids. So it has been very busy, but also so fun, and all of the summer things that I would want for summer. For my reading, I actually read 5 books in June. I thought it was just gonna be 2 for the longest time, and then I finished another one, so it's like, okay, it'll be 3. Then I managed to squeak out 2 more, but it was really nice. I know I've been talking on my channel about wanting to intentionally slow down my life and my reading, and so this was good. I'm very pleased with my 5 books. I do have to admit, it's a little hard seeing my reminder on Storygraph that I am 6 books behind my reading challenge goal, but it's okay. It's okay. It is what it is. So for some quick stats, I read 5 books in June for a total of 2,076 pages. All 5 were fiction, 2 were middle grade, 1 was YA, 1 was a thriller, and 1 was historical fiction. I read 1 book on my Kindle, 3 were hard copies, and 1 book I started reading last month as a hard copy and I finished this month on audio. 1 book was a 2 bookmark read, 3 books were 4 bookmark reads, and 1 book was a 5 bookmark read, so overall it was a great reading month. I'm gonna start with my 2 bookmark read and work my way up. So my 2 bookmark read was One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. I got this copy from the library and I almost put it down right at the very beginning, but I kept going because, you know, with thrillers, like, so many things could change, right? It still ended up being a 2 bookmark read. Trying to figure out how to hold it so the glare of my light is not reflected the whole time. So the premise of this book, Lila is a scientist and things are not going well with her research and her project. Her boyfriend Nico is an aspiring actor and he hears about this new reality TV show called One Perfect Couple that he would like to sign up for. He manages to convince Lila to say yes, but after they sign the dotted line and agree to be in the show, she starts kind of finding out more things that don't really make sense and don't add up, and she's not entirely comfortable with the premise. The show is going to be filmed on this remote island with multiple couples. Now, I almost put the book down because it seemed like the plot of the book was going to hinge around this reality show, and it said that the reality show was going to be finding out who was the one perfect couple at the end of the 10 weeks, but the person you arrive with in a couple may not be the person you end the show with. But pretty early on, something happens that derails the show, and then is this on the book cover? I don't want to give spoilers. Okay, almost gave some spoilers. Things start to go wrong quickly, and Lila is trying to figure out what all is going on and also trying to survive on this island. So I did push through, I did finish. It did not feel like a thriller to me, I think is the main reason that I gave it 2 bookmarks. It didn't have a lot of suspense. It didn't really have a lot of twists. It felt more like a light survival story. I don't know. It mostly was not for me. It was not really what I expected from a thriller, and the plot itself did not really grip me. I haven't heard very many reviews yet about this book, so I'm curious to look up some more videos and see what other people are thinking and kind of see some dialogue around this book. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts because I'm curious. On to my 4 bookmark reads, and the first of which was actually the book club pick for the month, which was 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I read this one on my Kindle. It's a YA fantasy book, and apparently the first book in a series. I didn't realize that when I started it. This book follows the encounters of Shiori, a princess, and she has 6 brothers. They live in a place where magic is not allowed, but Shiori has a secret, and that is that she has some magic of her own. Through a series of events, Shiori discovers that her stepmother is a sorceress, and the stepmother ends up cursing Shiori where she cannot speak, and her brothers turn into cranes. 6 crimson cranes. And if Shiori says anything, every word that she says, one of her brothers will die. So the story is about her trying to break the curse, trying to find her brothers and save herself and her brothers. The story was fun. The writing I found to be a bit simple, and for that reason, it kind of took me a while to get into it. There were a couple things that were just kind of bugging me about the story, or I guess specific phrases that were used, but overall the story was very fun and I do want to continue the series. I haven't checked yet to see if my library has a second book, but I am curious to see where it ends up going. My next 4 bookmark read is A Small Zombie Problem by K.G. Campbell. My oldest has been wanting to read zombie books, and I honestly did not know where to begin. That's never really been a topic or genre that I was interested in, so I ended up just kind of browsing for middle grade zombie books, and I found this one. My library had a copy, and it was actually really fun. I read this so fast, and then I gave it to my son to read, and he also read it pretty quickly himself. The story is about a boy named August who lives with his aunt, and for a variety of reasons, they never leave the house, as in they never step foot past the porch of their house. One day, when the grocery delivery comes, the person delivering it accidentally drops something, so August ventures out to retrieve this item from the groceries, and he looks up and there are some other kids standing there. Shortly thereafter, he receives his first letter, and it happens to be from an aunt that he didn't even know he had, the mother of one of those kids that he had seen that day outside his house. His aunt invites him over to her house, and on the way, something strange happens, and soon enough, he has a small zombie problem. This book not only talks about this small zombie problem, it also has themes of family ties and how to handle bullying. This is also apparently the first book in a series, so I will have to find the second one to read. Next was The Fruit of the Drunken Tree by Ingrid Rojas Contreras. This book I started reading last month, I believe, with a copy from the library, and then when I was on a small road trip this weekend, I ended up finishing it on audio. I actually really liked the audio version, and I would recommend that if you are curious about this book. This is historical fiction set in Colombia during Pablo Escobar's reign, and it mostly follows the story of 2 girls. Chula is 7, and she lives in a relatively safe gated community in Bogota. The other is Petrona. She is, I want to say she's 14 in the book, and she lives in an area occupied by guerrillas. Chula's mom ends up hiring Petrona to work as a maid. The story follows both of these girls, their similarities as they are both trying to deal with and understand and grapple with the political and social unrest, and also their differences in their experience, as Chula has her family that she is with, and even though she sees and encounters pretty terrible things, it's still quite different from Petrona, who is faced with having to make awful decisions in an attempt to protect her family. And at the end of the book, the author includes a personal note, and she talks about how even though this story is historical fiction, it reflects the realities of so many people from that time. It was a good read, not always necessarily a happy read. It did make me teary, which is not necessarily something that happens often when I'm reading, but it was a very good book. I would recommend it. Last but not least was my 5 bookmark read, and that was the book that was picked by the spinning wheel for my virtual TBR last month, and that is The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan from the Percy Jackson series. My oldest has read almost all the books in the series, and he really enjoyed it, so it's fun to start reading it myself and then be able to have some of these conversations with him about the books. I know I was very late to the Percy Jackson series, so if there's anyone else like me out there who is also late to the series, here is a brief description. Percy Jackson is away at school, but he has a hard time with some of his classmates and one teacher in particular. One day, that teacher turns into a monster and actually tries to kill Percy. He ends up getting expelled, and he goes back to live with his mom. Through a series of events, he finds out that there are actually a lot of secrets that have been kept from him about who he is, his background, and why some of these strange things have been happening to him. For his own safety, he ends up going to a place called Camp Half-Blood. Once there, he finds out that this is a place for demigods, and he is in fact a demigod. One thing leads to another, and Percy finds himself on a quest involving gods, demigods, and magical items. This was such a fun read. I definitely want to continue the series, and if you haven't read it and you want a fun middle grade book, this is a good one. So once again, I did not finish the book that I unwrapped for my physical TBR, Seasonal Self-Care Rituals. I did start it, I am enjoying it, but I haven't finished. Nor have I finished The Glamour of Grammar. Have I picked it up at all since my last video? No, I have not. So this month for July, I am not going to be spinning my virtual TBR wheel, and I'm not going to unwrap a new physical TBR because I just kind of want another low-key month of reading, and I do still want to finish The Glamour of Grammar and Seasonal Self-Care Rituals before opening another, so I'm just going to kind of give myself a low-key month. I have 2 specific books that are on my July TBR, and the first of which is my book club pick, and that is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. This is her newest release, and I actually got in line for it at the library a while ago, and I'm now second in line, so hopefully the timing will work out great to read that in July. And I'm also going to be doing a buddy read with Stuart from Rekindled Reading, and we are going to be reading James by Percival Everett. I actually bought a copy of this new, and when it arrived, it looks like I don't know, something spilled on it or got smeared on it, so that's kind of a bummer. But anyways, this book is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but told from the point of view of James, the enslaved person that Huck takes on his adventures. I have heard so many good things about this book, and I am really looking forward to it. And I'm also excited for my first buddy reading since starting my channel. And if you haven't checked out Stuart's channel, I will link to it below. Make sure you check out his channel and watch for his video as well on his review. So that is my reading recap. I would love to hear from you what you read in June, what was your favorite book, and what are you most looking forward to reading in July. And until next time, happy reading. 3 books were 4 bookmark reads, but you might end up being a person, one of the people